This is what the city of San Diego looked like in 1867 at Old Town. In that year, on April 15th, Alonzo E. Horton arrived by ship from San Francisco. He was carried ashore on the back of an Indian near what is now Market Street. As Horton would later recall,
"We had to wait there an hour for a wagon to take us up to San Diego."
While he was waiting, Horton took a stroll for a quick survey of the area.
"There was nothing but sagebrush then. I thought San Diego must be heaven on earth. It seemed to me the best spot for building a city I ever saw."
Horton was a man of vision and action. By parting with a $10 gold piece, he arranged an election for a board of trustees, which in turn passed a resolution for the sale of certain farmlands. On May 10th, Horton bought 960 acres of waterfront land for $265, or 27.5 cents an acre. At that time, the residents of Old Town were convinced he had more money than brains. Horton's first construction was a wharf at the foot of 5th Street, which cost $45,000. Newtown had a main street. At first, Horton gave away free lots, but not corner ones, on the condition that the owners put up buildings of a certain size. That was the beginning of a new San Diego. For the next few years, it was a boom town. Buildings sprouted on barren land like weeds in spring. By 1870, the population of Newtown was a staggering 2,301. The harbor was alive with activity. Lumber for building arrived daily, and there was word of a railroad.
All right, that's enough of this. Let's take a look at Old World San Diego. All right, let's start with the geography on San Diego. We're looking at the bottom left corner of the United States, right on the border with Mexico, very close to Tijuana. San Diego, what do we have for historical population? And Wikipedia is showing us a modern day population of 1.3, well, almost 1.4 million people. But when we go back to 1900, 17,000. And you can see here 1890 to 1900, not a lot of growth here, about 1,000 people. 1870, we heard in the historical video, about 2,000 people, 1870, with the really that hard start post-American Civil War again. So we see this story repeat itself throughout the states. And special thanks in this video goes out to Gregory May, a viewer who helped me out quite a bit, local to the area. Keeps quite an archive of photos of San Diego on Facebook, so many thanks, Gregory. Happy to share your videos, and much of the newer videos you're going to see many of them were actually taken by Gregory, but he also pointed me in the direction of many of these structures. We're looking at here a structure from the Balboa Park area in San Diego, supposedly much of it constructed for the Panama, California Exposition in 1915-1916. So we're told. Just take a look at the architecture and judge for yourself. Is this the stuff they were putting up in San Diego in the early 1900s, or is there more to the story? So despite it being a very small city at the turn of the century, we have these types of postcards with the rail cars and the multi-storied buildings indicating that there's something more afoot here. And if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that we question the historical narrative. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and I encourage you to explore the catalog. It's a very interesting field of research, I would suggest. And no matter where you live, you're most likely to find these types of buildings. So right away we're seeing the Antiquitech and all of the hallmarks of the Old World. which is not really consistent with the population for the time, or what they tell us about how this city developed. You can see some of these early photographs. Again, we zoom right in and you can see really screaming at us old world with the eyebrow dormer. Little dormers coming off the cone. What do we have in the background here? Here on the right we're seeing the well-constructed stone structures that are so common across the states at this early time period. Very difficult construction process going on here. Of course, we see very few photos of construction of those types of buildings, and when we do, they tend to be quite questionable. And no shortage of splendor in the downtown buildings. You're looking at what they call a Spanish colonial revival style in much of the San Diego architecture, especially when you get those clay roofs. You can sort of see it once you get used to it. But that's not the only thing we're seeing here in San Diego, so there's a bit of a blend. Looking like this is the athletic club. Here, let's take a closer look. Here you can see 1928 photograph, quite a large structure. Early time period. This is an article telling us that it's been built. Have we learned to question what the newspapers tell us yet? Or do we take this at face value as the historical record? Really, that's the question, isn't it? And a modern day shot, and you can see again the detailing that goes on in the upper reaches of this large structure. Getting close to what we might call Art Deco. There's a nice look from the front. Not a great resolution, but you get the picture. Moving on, we have the Balboa Theater. And here you have that corner dome structure. Still stands to this day, quite colorful. Have a look at the detail here. Spectacular and very reminiscent of many of the old world structures that we see across the realm again, especially throughout the states and beyond. Beautiful structure. Much to look at in San Diego. This is a bank. Gregory tells me there's several of these. And for the purposes of the video, I couldn't include much of what he sent me, but I did my best to give you a sampling. If you're interested in the region, see if you can hunt him down on Facebook. And he's got lots of pictures to share. So this is a look at the bathhouse. Again, you have that Spanish colonial style-ish. This is a closer look at the front entry. Nice higher resolution photograph. So here you have what look to be, muddy, rocky almost streets. You can see the rail line in the middle of the road, and you have this building looking nothing like new. The writing looking like it's been pasted on the front and not a part of the original structure. The original structure looking like it's been there quite a bit longer. Some people have hypothesized these bathhouses were actually cooling tanks for the old energetic systems of the old world. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. So it's interesting to ponder on. California Theater apparently still stands. We have some pictures, modern day pictures, very run down, probably on the brink of either being torn down or revitalized. My guess would be torn down. But with these wonderful close-ups, you really get a sense of how much detail was put into these buildings. It's a real shame that these things are left to rot like this, but I think it's by design, I suspect. Some shots of the interior. And moving on. We have a municipal pier, old world looking structure right here on the front end. Couldn't find much more on this. If you're from the area or have been to the area, please don't hesitate to add your 2 cents to the story in the comment section. I always enjoy the comments. It adds a lot more perspective. I've never been to San Diego. I'm just here to bring you the visuals and some of my ideas. So again, we're looking at early time period, quite a bit of architecture infrastructure already in place at this early time period, unless we were to assume that many of these structures are brand new, which is what the historical narrative will tell us. You can see how early the time period is here based on the method of transportation. But these things not looking like they were built any time around when this photo was taken. They look like a part of the infrastructure. So we question the narrative. We're calling the California State Building as part of that Panama, California exposition. Curiously, at the same time San Francisco is having its exhibition, which is suspicious again. And we're looking at a hard start for the California population boom and the resetting of the narrative here on the West Coast. Certainly worth exploring that. So many of these multi-storied, what we're calling bank buildings with very detailed cornices up here. You'll see a few in the modern day in color as we move forward. Another shot of one of the buildings built supposedly for... Now this is curious because we're often told that the structures are made temporarily during these expositions, but many of these are still standing in this Balboa Park area. And the Panama, California exposition is a curious tale, really. They talk about how San Diego was the lowest population city to get a World's Exposition. I'm just going to give you the Coles notes, but I'll put the link to this Wikipedia page in the description. It's very interesting. They talk about this Balboa Park being barren and empty, filled with coyotes and rattlesnakes, and all of those types of things. And then they get into the type of architecture that they featured. Was unique to World's Fairs across the states. Construction beginning 1911. Remember, the exposition opens 1915. And then you have a list of permanent structures and some ridiculous naming of types of architecture. Here you have a Churrigueresque, or ultra Baroque, they're calling it, architecture. And then they have a list of temporary buildings that were actually made permanent. Here they're saying this one was made permanent in the 80s. Now I don't know about that, but I think this is a pretty poorly put together cover story for architecture that was in this region at the time. But I could be wrong, and the historical narrative could be completely honest and open about what went on. You decide. Here's a high school looking like a castle. I like this one too. This very interesting looking steam. Is it steam? I'm not sure. But very interesting looking rail engine, I suppose you could say. The shape of it is struck me. I wanted to include that in here. This is also interesting. Residence of Madame Schumann Heink. You can see the rocks built right around all these rocks. So something suspicious about that as well. Strange area. You have the Great Sweetwater Dam here, built at an early time period. So dams a part of the old world infrastructure. I have suggested in the past. I've seen many dams built of stone with implausible timelines. I've got one here in San Diego as well. They also have an outdoor pipe organ. Spreckles pipe organ, largest in the world, apparently. Part of that whole Expo. Very strange situation, that one. And just a few looks at the exposition before we move on. Built again in that Churrigueresque architectural style. Of course, I have a sanitarium. And there's a nice look at the main thoroughfare of the Panama, California exposition, 1915. Now remember, the population at the time in San Diego during that exposition looks like somewhere around 50,000 according to what Wikipedia tells us. So really not a large city whatsoever to be having this type of attention. And we'll try to speed it along, but I hope you're getting the picture. Remember, the population quite small, and all these buildings and infrastructure looking solidly in place at an early time period, contradicting the narrative given to us in the video at the beginning of this video, I would suggest. The old Union Station. Jumping around a little bit just to give you an idea what some of the interiors look. El Cortez Hotel. And this is a main thoroughfare for the downtown area. We'll look at this building a little closer moving forward. Churches covered in ivy, implying they've been around for quite some time. I love the old street scenes. You can see how the infrastructure here, not looking new at all, looking like it's been a part of the area for quite some time. So, has history been revised? Has the truth of the past been obscured from our eyes? Or are we taking it all at face value? And you have a lot of fountains and a lot of this going on, that whole Balboa Park area converted into a lot of museums and an homage to the arts, really. We have seen how they use the arts and art itself to obscure the beauty of the buildings. But the fountain's also a part of that cooling process of the energetics of the old world buildings. It has been suggested. And you can see here again too, they have these beautiful structures, but you have this very basic writing on the front. Interestingly here too, we're looking at the War of the Worlds. Very interesting. That would be a shout out to H.G. Wells. I did a video about H.G. Wells and how he was potentially a setter of the new narrative within the circles that he frequented and the gentlemen he rubbed elbows with. And then you can see here the wow, beautiful, amazing infrastructure, amazing. It's got to make you wonder, this was built for World's Fair, or was this around much longer than that? Again, in Balboa Park you have all these structures. We'll keep moving along. There's quite a bit to show you. We have the State College in that Spanish colonial style, you might say. So again, quite a bit of infrastructure. Here's another look in that Churrigueresque style. That some were temporary, some were not. Certainly worth a deeper dive. San Diego and that World's Fair. No shortage of churches with towers built out of brick and stone, all par for the course in our old world research. Alright, this is a Methodist church, not looking like the previous churches. Could have easily been designated a government building of some sort. We'll see that a little later on. It's been repurposed for another purpose, let's say. Alright, so we have an old photograph. The coal block, they're calling this. We have some modern photographs here from Gregory. They're giving us this date that's just been stuck on the top here. So you have to ask yourself, is the building and the lettering coming from the same time period, or are we looking at a cover story here? And then really, these close-ups are fantastic to get a picture of how these things were constructed. Remember the 1890s in San Diego, not even 20,000 people living there, but they're building this type of stuff. Of course, you had to have a courthouse, San Diego County Courthouse, looking like a beauty. And a quick backstory on the courthouse here. You can see it's the third courthouse. Looks like it was demolished in 1961. That's again par for the course with that progressive movement in the 60s. We have a second courthouse here lasting only 20 years. So again, we're seeing all of the hallmarks. The second courthouse supposedly donated from this Alonzo Horton character that we saw at the beginning of the video. And of course, they don't give us a timeline on construction in this. They just tell us when it was completed. And of course, absolutely ridiculous that you would ever think to tear such a structure down. I'm hoping there was some sort of uproar in the community. If you were around then or remember any of that, yeah, please add that to the comment section. I always appreciate those. All right, here's the Churrigueresque styling again. Yeah, what is that even made of? This is some sort of cast concrete, molded concrete. It sticks nicely to the structure. Beautiful. There you get a sense of what this is actually made of. Now, if I told you this was in Spain and built in the 1600s, I don't think you'd have a problem with that, would you? But this is in San Diego and built in the early 1900s, we're told. This is also a part of the Balboa Park area, looking quite old. And no doubt a part of that water system again. To my eye, anyway. First National Bank. Beautiful old world structure, not making any sense for that early time period with such a low population. Alright, we get into the gas lamp quarter. And that video I pulled from the beginning of this gets into the gas lamp quarter. I'll link that entire video in the description. Apparently there was a revitalization of this area of the town going on in the 80s. But you can see the evidence, a lot of the evidence of the old world structure. Hard to tell what they built in the 80s and what was there, and if there's a blending of the two. But beautiful architecture in the gas lamp quarter of San Diego. We see again the coal block building right here. Now we get to the Grant Hotel. Of course, we don't have a timeline. We're just told that this was built in 1910, or opened October 15th, 1910, including 2 swimming pools and a ballroom on the top floor. Remember at the time, San Diego in 1910 having a population of about 40,000 people, give or take. There's a look at this spectacular Grant Hotel. Ulysses S. Grant, I believe, is the namesake. Interesting here too, you have the depiction of these transmitter wires or towers on the top. Also, you're seeing depictions, early depictions of what looks to be more detailing. You can see here, if I go to this, it's looking quite a bit plainer than that. And I've seen this a lot as well in my research, this scaling down of a lot of the detail. You have to wonder. You really have to wonder. Of course, you could say that they just tarted it up the postcard, which is possible, but we're looking at a depiction and that it was scaled down at a later date. You really have to wonder. And there's a nice look at the lobby. But they do provide us with a construction photo just to get us off the scent, off the trail, I suggest. Yeah, there's a horse and buggy just to confirm that early time period for us. What do you think? Is this a construction photo? Is there some funny business afoot? Beautiful lobby, really. I love these seats that wrap around these columns. And then the dining hall, of course, not to be outdone. And another look at Old World San Diego, 1888, again that early time period, 1888, we would be looking at a population of about 15,000 people, but they're building structures like this, because why not? Why not? Why wouldn't you build like this? If you're right at the bottom corner of the States, and you've got 20,000 people twiddling their thumbs, just wanting to build buildings. Yeah. The Hotel Brewster. Nice looking structure. A lot of detail. There's another one of the Grant Hotel. A little bit mixed up here, but I think you get the picture. early building, the Hotel Horton House. Again, you can see we're looking at a brick structure. We're looking at some detailing. Interesting looking cupola with the pole. The Marston Company building. You can see, you can just make out the detailing along the top here. And take a look at this beauty over here. Now, I wonder, is that the same building as that? And have they taken this off? There's some, of course, I'm speculating, but I think that might be the same building. Let me know what you guys think. Same building? Of course, we got to take the dome off, right? If it is. Oddfellows having a home base here, of course. The Lion Clothing Company, not a great photo. I had to show you the entire structure before I show you some of the fantastic images that Gregory sent me. And let's get a little closer here. Really, look at the detailing here. The underside of the soffit is just like, like would we ever put this kind of detailing for that part of the building these days? Take the time to put these in each little bay between the rafters or trusses, whatever they may be. And of course, this is all sort of fitting in with what we're seeing in Balboa Park. Beautiful. Chirigaresque, I guess. Maybe they won't call that Chirigaresque. Not ornate enough, but it's close. This is the Louis Bank of Commerce. A real eye catcher. Still stands. Beautifully detailed structure. Got the spread winged eagles on top here as well. Masonic Temple, but of course, interesting, we've got a bit of a slope there. Here they're giving us, again, a newspaper clipping looking like 1909 to set the timeline for us. So we can trust the newspapers to tell us the truth of what happened throughout history. Thank you, newspapers. Nesmith Greeley building, beautiful, old world structure. Here is what it looks like in the modern day. Check out the circular brick curve. These have to be curved face bricks. Make this tight of a curve, I think. But you can see all the ornate detail that goes on with the brickwork here. And then as we get to the top, how long has this been sitting here? How structurally sound is this flower to have lasted that long? What is this made of? Is this a metal? Some sort of concrete polymer that we don't use to the modern day, because I can't really think of any material that would stand up to the test of time as long as this one has. Unless, of course, they'll tell us that was redone in the 80s, which I don't think so. It could be. Just no shortage of detail everywhere you look in these old world structures. In San Diego, you have it down here. You can see the old writing on the side of the building here. This is what they did when they repurposed. They slapped big signs. You can see hotel. And you can also see 1888 Nesmith Greeley building. So they're giving you a timeline there. What do you think? This is the organ pavilion. So we looked at that pipe organ, a postcard. And this is, you can see the columns in here. Really, really well put together floor. And there it is from a bird's eye view. The organ pavilion. Curious indeed. The Commonwealth building. We'll look a little bit at some of the interior of this, just to give you a sense of, well, they're calling it the Pantasia's Theater. You can see the octagonal ceiling decorations. These are amazing light fixtures. Built for for movies, or is there an older purpose that they're obscuring with the advent of Hollywood and the motion picture phenomenon that has come to define our time? Beautiful. Very difficult to construct all this. Not a lot of people in San Diego at the time, so you have to wonder how skilled were these builders. Alright, the Pickwick Hotel. Old postcard, not a great photo, but we do have a modern look at the Pickwick just to give you a sense of some of the detail, top and bottom. Possibly statues being removed from these areas here. You see this in a lot of the old world structures as well. A scaling down having gone on, I suggest that's possible here. And a little more of the Churrigueresque. Sorry, I can't help but chuckle. This is Churrigueresque, isn't it? I don't even know what to look at here. There's so much detail to look at. Oh, it's incredible. Beautiful. I mean, if the historical narrative is on the up and up, bravo, guys. You guys in the 80s, you did some beautiful work making these permanent. I'll tell you. Beautiful. Here we have the old Santa Fe demolition, Santa Fe Depot being demolished. As you do, old world tech on top. I always wonder about these photos too. Are they legit? You have to wonder, don't you? This is the stadium attached to the high school you saw earlier. You can see the old world stylings of the stadium here. Colonnade, I suppose you could say, feeling like old Rome, really, like you expect some sort of chariot race to go on in there. Of course, it's not chariot races, it's football games now, isn't it? American football has come to define, what is it, the pastime of America? Football and baseball? Are they harnessing our energetics through these professional sports and through our adoration of these teams and players? And I think there's something to that as well. Here's the school, covered in ivy, or whatever it might be. And, yeah, the stadium below. Dug into the ground again, right? There's a good look, a good aerial. Again, early photograph. All of these looking quite old. Quite old indeed. Anyone watching this go to this high school? Got any stories to share? Would love to hear it. And then don't forget to hit that bell, click that bell button to get notifications on new videos. I have heard people being unsubscribed and unnotified, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you're still subbed, and keep an eye out for new videos coming out. Here's the old City Hall, multi-storied structure, beautifully ornate, making no sense for population and time period and means at their disposal. The Spreckles Theater. Let's go right to the interior. Still stands, got some angels in the architecture. Thank you, Paul Simon, for that lyric. I've used it several times. Here's the front area. This is marble. Beautiful. Spreckles Theater. St. Joseph's Cathedral. There's a photograph of it. Quite a large structure. Beautiful. We're going to take a look now at the Sunset Cliff area, and this gets into some of the research I've done on the frying of the circuit board earth, and are we looking at the remains of old structures that have been electrified into what we might now call geology in a rock-like state, or is this all natural formation? I'll leave it up to you to decide, but certainly worth sharing. Let's take a look at some of those formations here at the Sunset Cliffs in San Diego. You can see the horizontal stratification. You get the what look to be cave openings. Very interesting. This one's very curious, I think, too. Kind of two openings in uniform, or in unison. Another opening here. Looking like we have a layer of mud on top here. This would be circular. Here, this is a better look. looking like maybe a fried dome of some sort. I don't know how this can be a natural formation. I'm sure the geologists have an explanation for us, but it's curious. And I guess they'll tell us that they poured some stairs in here. I don't know. What do you think? I'll leave it open, of course. This is a good look at that little area, though, with those two openings, just to make you think. Gonna scratch your head. Sunset Cliffs, nice looking place. Looks like a lot of fun goes on there. This is a telephone building. A little bit of detail. YWCA, they're telling us. In modern day, they're calling it a telephone building. I'm not sure. Just bringing you the visuals, but you see that detailing. Telling us this is the same building, but doesn't look like it. But again, I want to highlight that what looks to be the age. Again, this could be several hundred years old. The brick looks old. You tell me. What do you think? So I mentioned earlier, I think we highlighted this as a Methodist church. They're calling it the Abbey nowadays. With that statue on top, you can barely make that out there. And we have some close-ups from our local friend, Gregory. Here's some of the interior. Nice close look at some of the ornate detailing. Corbelling. Nice light fixture for you. Isn't that interesting? Beautiful. You have to wonder how much that would go for, you know, on an Etsy site or something like that. And we got a bit of a window view, just in case you weren't sure. Yeah. So is it on the up and up? You have to wonder, don't you? There's the statue on top. Apparently it was replaced, sprayed gold. But maybe just taken down and sprayed, I'm not sure. Alright, we'll move on. This is still the Abbey. They call it the Keener Chapel. 1884. So 1884, San Diego. Wow, 5,000 people living there at the time. You tell me, were they able to build those types of structures then? Theosophical Institute, Point Loma. Very curious looking structures here. Let's look a little closer. This is a good one, I think. This is suspicious, to be sure. Theosophical Society linked with Madame Helena Blavatsky and what went on there at the early, you can see a fingerprint here too, the early 1900s. And then very interesting, this foreground as well. We'll move on. I definitely want to include that, and you can muse on that all you want. We do have a depiction here of the little yoga children linked with the Point Loma area with that Theosophical Society. So what's going on here? We have questions, don't we? Alright, as promised, we had that Trust and Savings Bank earlier in the on that street scene. And here's a good look at it. It's looking like it's from the 20s. Very large structure. Very ornate looking on top. And I wonder, you have to wonder how much has been scaled back. There. Well, maybe not. Hard to tell. As you get in a little closer, you can see all that spectacular detailing. This is a 100-year-old building, remember. A roundabout. You see the circular corners, very interesting, and you get this type of detail on some of the corners, which is really beautiful. Spectacular old world in architecture. There's Balboa Park, that World's Fair. 4 years to construct, design, construct, and apparently it was open for 2 years. At the same time, so they were competing, I guess, with the San Francisco World's Fair at the same time, which seems a bit strange as well because they're not far from each other. They'll tell us this is the opening of that World's Fair. And a few more looks at that amazing infrastructure and architecture. Look at the fountains. Jeez. Jaw droppers. Alright, coming to the end of the file here. San Diego, California. 17,000 people at the turn of the century. Yet we have quite the amazing architecture and infrastructure for such an early time period. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, sub, and I'll see you next time.